Hi, welcome to session 11. I'm going to touch on this in probably two different sessions, but essentially I'm going to be looking at career options in this session, and at a later session, probably 12 arguably, changing career, because I think you come at those from a slightly different angle. Over the years, I've certainly had clients that are in both situations. It always amazed me. I had young clients, and you sort of think, how can young people already have lost direction and, not know where they're going in life? And it clearly came that careers school guidance for things like that was wholly inadequate. So that's where this session's going to go. And in session 12, I said, if you're looking at a career change. So if you're a young person deciding on what you might want to do in life, the most fundamental thing is to understand who you are as a person. The personal value sheet comes up in other areas of life coaching, but I would often use it as a starting point if people needed to get to know who they were as a person. Your job role, will be very much dictated by the type of person you are, and learning about that is almost key. So much now is placed on education and academia and exams and degrees. Well, that's kind of the training aspect. But as we all know, we will all have come across trained teachers that are good and bad, trained nurses, trained doctors, trained lawyers, trained anything. So it's not just about the training, it's about the person who's implementing what they've learned. It's the person who's executing those skills and those aspects of the role that can do it well or badly. And if you have certain strengths and abilities and competencies, playing to those is going to make your job a lot easier, and you perform better ultimately. So I'll share with you the performance. Let's have a look. Okay, so this is the personal value sheets that I mentioned. Let's make it a bit bigger. So the idea that your values will steer you through life is quite a key theme to life coaching anyway. We seldom contradict these values. So if you regard yourself as very honest, it is very unlikely for you to be dishonest. If you regard family as being really important, it's unlikely that you're going to make sacrifices along the way that contradict that. And this obviously steers you in lots of aspects of your life, but keenly with your job, you've got to kind of get that balance too. So what I would also suggest when you're doing these kind of things is that you rate them. So many of these aspects will perhaps be appropriate. So you might be competitive and value economic security, etc. But some will score higher than others. So out of 5 is a system. It could be out of 10. Anything, as long as it means something to you. And at the end, you get a list which you feel represents who you are. So this is not an exhaustive list, but this is a good starting point to get you to think about, what do I value? What is important? So being competitive, being spiritual, economic security. Some people value that. They don't like to have debt. They don't like to have, massive loans or push themselves financially. So, and other people, are quite happy to do so. Order, neatness, organisation, advancement, pleasure, freedom, achievement, family happiness, service, helping others, integrity, loyalty, friendship, responsibility. And as you go through, rate them to whether you think they're important. So some people are definitive, in their pleasure seeking, outside of work, in work, they're always looking for the fun angle. And other people, it's much, much lower down on, from an importance point of view. Some people value loyalty. Some people think, well, it's important, but it's not a 5. independence, cooperation, power, whether you need recognition in your life for your job, for your skill set. Some people not bothered if people notice that I'm doing a good job. Other people, it's quite important that they're being recognised for their achievement or performance. Affection, health, wealth, wisdom, adventure, and essentially get to your point where you've got that ranking. Now this will feature again when it comes to, for example, looking for a partner. So you'll look to a partner that would mirror a lot of those. If you are a keen family-oriented person, you don't want to marry or be with somebody that family isn't important at all. Because although it's not that the relationship couldn't work, it just means that you're going to have conflict. You're going to have times when you want to spend the Christmas with family and friends, and they won't. They'll just want to spend it with you. So having a partner that mirrors your values, shares the same values, is a really good starting point. So back to you, getting to know yourself, because again, when it comes to deciding what career you want, those kind of things will help. If you are very competitive, being a sales environment will suit you really well. If competitiveness is very low, why would you want to be in a job where performance figures and targets are a massive part of that? So it's all relevant. What that also then leads me to do is, and there's also things like skill sheets and stuff, is once you recognise your personal values, going a bit deeper than that, the SWOT form, which stands for, hang on, let's see if I can get that up for you. So this is sometimes called SCOT, sometimes called SWOT. Strengths, weaknesses, stroke, challenges, opportunities and threats. And again, what that does is you're looking at the opportunities that present you as a young person. What are your strengths? You might not have had a job before. So you'll be looking at your academic strengths, your personal strengths. What weaknesses do you have? So you might find exams really difficult. You might find certain aspects because of dyslexia or autism or things like that, which give you challenges in your life. What opportunities do you have? So you might have a university on your doorstep, you might not. You might have family members that have a business that you're interested in. So there might be opportunities to go into that, or doors might open to you because of who you know as opposed to what you know. And threats, so recognizing that, location or finances, or there might be other things that could inhibit what job and career you take. So you might love you might love to be a doctor, but know that to do years and years worth of study is just beyond you because of financial commitments, or just because you know that even if you think you're clever enough, you don't think you can apply yourself. And that's fine. Recognizing that is really important, because not all of us, even if we're intelligent, want to pursue that academic route. And that's really important. But nowadays, academia, qualifications and degrees is kind of pushed on everyone as the norm. You don't necessarily need to go down that route, or you can get a great deal of work experience and then decide at a later stage, now I want to do a degree to support something that I want to do. Some companies offer apprenticeships that lead to degrees. So it's looking at what opportunities are there for you that you could perhaps make the most of. Don't think that you have to follow a set pattern, or indeed patterns that your friends are taking. Leaving school at 18, exploring the world, getting some work experience, getting some jobs, working out what it is you like, working out what you don't like, can make a huge difference to which road you ultimately go down. Equally now, jobs can change. I would always suggest that whatever you pick, if it's based on your strengths and your interests, you're not likely to deviate away from it tremendously. But if you like working with people, it might be teaching, it might be caring, it might, there are lots of different sort of roles. I was talking about therapy. with somebody the other day, well, there's so many different types of therapy out there, so sports therapy, hydrotherapy, working with animals, working with children, working with adults. You're looking at psychologists, you're also looking at counselling, life coaching. It's just hypnotherapy. There's just so many. And then you've got your more formal occupational therapists and those kind of things. So there's so many different roles, and they all interact with people. They all involve service, helping somebody. So it's trying to work out what within those perhaps would suit you best. So, really looking and drilling into that is quite useful. Everything you put down on paper, everything you put down with pen and paper as well, gives you a chance to review and assess it, which again gets you to sort of thinking, I don't know where to go, don't know what to do, to, okay, there's starting to a pattern develop here. And that makes a big difference. Another recommendation, and I'll share my screen again. So what I often talk to people who are looking is, what academic route you've gone down. Well, now we know with the options that academia is quite narrow. So the school system, insists on you taking a science and a language, and so options are quite limited. So it's much harder to work out whether you like working with your hands, whether you like working with your brain. So you might not have experienced that a great deal. So you might be looking at this list kind of, well, I'm not sure, but I think I might. And that's fine at this stage. So again, would compromise, dislike, trying to get you to make some decisions about things. Again, this is really just a starting point. Working directly with people, helping people physically, mentally, medically, working in a team, working shifts, driving, working inside, outside, working alone, working with animals, computer work, practical work, telephone work, things routine, things with high task turnover, slow task turnover. So we talked about competitiveness, which would potentially be a high task turnover, pressurized jobs, jobs that are not so pressurized, jobs that involve problem solving, investigative work, following instructions, having routine, or things that are very varied. And all these different ones, wearing uniform, studying, taking work home, commuting, all enable you to kind of work out what kind of job would suit me best. So at the age of 21, I thought I'd quite like to be a firefighter. I thought I'd be really good. Physically, I'd do well. Mentally, I think I'd cope with it well. But when I realised it was a four day shift, 2 days, 2 nights, with a rolling pattern, at 21, I wasn't prepared to give up my weekends. And as simple as that, a job that I thought I'd really enjoy for lots of good reasons went out because I wasn't prepared to do the shift pattern at age 21. So these things are quite key, whether you want to do these aspects, because that will narrow down ultimately what you pick job-wise. Again, bearing in mind that you might just say, well, I like working in a team and this appeals to me now. But you don't have to stay at it. If it actually you find the team environment is not for you, you can always shift later. But what you're doing at this point as a young person is trying to work out whether I think I might like a job that involves a lot of planning, whether I would like a job that involves a lot of instruction. It's really important that you sort of have those thoughts initially. Now, also, there is now on the internet where you can actually search up occupations. Years ago, it used to be called occupations, and it used to be a massive directory, and it would be in the county library. But now there are online services that do the same. So don't ever assume that sort of a headline job is the only thing. Often when we say something medical, we think doctor or nurse. Well, don't forget there's pharmacy, there's radiographers, there's people that take x-rays, there's people that do bloods, there's a whole vast array of jobs. And if you can imagine what the limitless job opportunities there are, for example, just in the NHS, you will start to think along those lines. So you might have a medical interest, but think, I can't do doctor nursing. Well, maybe there's pharmaceutical roles. Maybe there is, taking x-rays or other things that you think, actually, that's the kind of medical role I would like to do, as opposed to being a nurse or a doctor. So explore, find those options online. The occupations director, I'm trying to think what it's called, but I think it's changed its name. But there is a vast array of information, and what they'll do is give you every imaginable occupation, usually in alphabetical order. So if it's something like therapy, you could kind of look at all the different variations, because being a sports therapist is very different from being a psychotherapist. So it's understanding what the job requires, what the commitments are, what qualifications or educational training you will need, what the hours of work are, and then what the pay is, because again, that's still a relevant factor, isn't it, to all of this? Is this a kind of area that you want to stay in? So if you think of retail, well, we often think of retail and a shop worker, but in retail there are managers, team leaders, there are strategic managers, there's business planners, there's marketing, there's public relations, so even in a retail environment, there's lots and lots of different jobs. And you might start at the bottom and want to work your way up. So don't be discouraged from pursuing something you really would like. Equally, be realistic. So I've had people that are interested, for example, in forensics. Well, that's great, but it's quite a narrow field. So the number of people in forensics in the UK compared to, for example, the number of people in the police force are considerably smaller. So if you're going to pursue that, you've got to be at the top of your game, or prepared to go abroad potentially to pursue that. Also, don't be confused by TV programs. So they might represent, forensics as doing a little bit of everything. And reality is that's not the case. You have people that concentrate on fingerprints or DNA or soil, and what soil can show about circumstances and crimes and all the rest of it. So again, the actual job that you might imagine versus the reality can be very different. Jobs within the police, you get traffic police, you get different kinds of levels of different areas. It's not just one type. So do your research, invest the time, and make sure that you're comfortable that what you're steering yourself towards is a good starting point. If it's a good starting point, you'll be fine, because all those skills that you will gain from going down those routes will be transferable to something else, even if you don't end up staying on that exact route. Occasionally you do get people that flip their careers, 180, but not often. If you've got people skills, the likelihood is you will use that somewhere along the road. If you're, highly mathematical, it's more likely that will be something that you'll use as well. So find what your strengths are, find what your preferences are, and then start looking at all the different opportunities, and start whittling down your choices to things that you think. Again, people say, I want to be an architect because they like drawing or they like the look of buildings. That's quite a headline job. But within an architectural environment, there are people that do the drawings and the planning. There are chartered surveyors. There are lots of different jobs that are kind of involved in that process that you just need to explore and work out. Actually, I don't necessarily want to do the drawing and the planning, which again, there are perhaps fewer of. But the execution of that, or working in housing or working in planning for a county council, might actually be what you're leaning towards. Talk to people that you know, do your own research, and make sure fundamentally that you're playing to your strengths, not just your academic ones, but your personal ones too. Okay. I will try and put those documents and anything else that I find that I think will help you decide on career options, and best of luck. Bye.